All right, so here we are, Beers with Chad number 7. Tonight's going to actually be Beers with Chad and Dinner with Chad. I'm drinking Expatriate IPA by Three Weavers, 6.9% ABV. Going to be cooking up a little New York strip there, and then this habanero green chili sausage, which is just like a pre-done sausage you can buy in the packet at the grocery store. Last week was out in Oakland, California, Berkeley, California. We had a weightlifting team training camp. So they were there all week, Monday through Saturday. I was just there Wednesday to Saturday. Cheers. But that was a lot of fun because I went to Berkeley my first 2 years of college, and we got to have some really great experiences there. Awesome podcast that we recorded. We recorded with Jesse Burdick, Jack Clark, who I'll be talking about more on next week's Beers with Chad right after his episode comes out. Yasha Fay, who's was a very good weightlifter, now a coach and a USAW board member. Joel Smith, who's a strength and conditioning coach at Cal, and then a live episode as well. The Jack Clark one was awesome, but it was just a lot of fun being back up in the Bay Area where I spent, like I said, my first 2 years of college up there, and we got to, like I said, talk with Jack Clark. He was amazing. Cal Rugby's won 23 of the last 33 national championships in rugby under his tenure, and then from there we got to head down to Memorial Stadium where the Cal Golden Bears play their football games and hang out with the strength and conditioning staff. The director of strength and conditioning there is a gentleman by the name of Mike Velasquez, and Coach Velasquez has been at Cal since I was a student, and previous to that, he was the strength and conditioning coach for De La Salle. And if you're familiar at all with high school football, or maybe even seen the movie, the name is escaping me right now, When the Game Stands Tall, you might know about De La Salle football, located in Concord, California. Didn't lose a game for 12 years, 151 game winning streak. And Coach Velasquez was their strength coach for a large portion of that before moving on to Berkeley. And just a great guy. He was in charge of basketball when I was there doing track. So we were in the same weight room, but only got to interact a couple times, and a lot of that was me asking him about how they organize things at De La Salle. And really great guy, good to catch up with him. Amazing facility, Sorinex outfitted facility, about 42,000 square feet, I believe, for strength and conditioning for all of the athletes on that side of campus, and a really phenomenal spot. And you'll see more of that facility in a couple of the YouTube videos that we're doing. One of the things that we also got to do in the incredible Memorial Stadium facility was take our weightlifters in there to train for the day. And we're doing that because it was a fun experience for the lifters. We're trying to foster this relationship with the Cal Athletics Department to maybe find some athletes who are finishing up their collegiate eligibility. Football, track, gymnastics, rugby. They have all 30 varsity sports at Cal, and I'm sure these are D1 scholarship athletes, and the majority of them aren't going to be going pro in their sport of choice. And as we've seen with the current Team Juggernaut athletes and athletes across USAW, it's a pretty fertile recruiting ground to get these ex-collegiate athletes, even if they're only starting the sport at 22, 23 years old, post-collegiate. I think that's something that's very often looked at as that would make it too hard to be really successful at the highest level in weightlifting. But I think if you come with a great GPP base and you start at 22 years old, that you can definitely be successful at the highest level in weightlifting, be an international medalist. You just have to have that GPP base and be able to dedicate, on the women's side. I think you could have an athlete within 4 years making Olympic teams. Morgan King was a perfect example of that, a collegiate soccer player who started weightlifting at age 27 and then at 31 was an Olympian. So it can definitely happen. Is it the most ideal way to get athletes into the sport? The most ideal development? Maybe not, but you got to work with what you have, and what the U.S. has is a ton of talented college athletes, and they have a ton of talented college athletes. Sorry that the fan is bugging. I can't turn it off because then it'll be too smoky. What they have is a ton of talented college athletes, and they got to take advantage of that. So that's kind of the first thing I want to talk about today. Is I'm going to throw this into there, and then those into there. That's for the Brussels sprouts there. I'm gonna saute them, I guess. I don't really know the terms in this butter. Very good. I go through too much of this probably. Yeah, so the first thing I want to talk about is USAW, and I know that they're making a great effort in this regard, that they're trying to, really foster relationships with collegiate strength coaches. Yeah, they're really trying to foster relationships with collegiate strength coaches, and as well as other sports like USA Gymnastics, to find more talent and get people to cross over to weightlifting. And I think that the place to really do that is by creating relationships with the collegiate strength and conditioning community. As I mentioned, Cal has 30 varsity sports. Between men's and women's, they have, 30 is a ton, and 30 is a ton of sports, more than most schools have. But I would estimate on the low end that between those 30 varsity sports at Cal, you could find 30 athletes on campus, maybe even 30 athletes per class, 30 athletes who are finishing their eligibility every year, who women within 2 years, men within 4 years would be national level lifters. And to create a relationship with those strength and conditioning coaches, I think that's going to be the easiest way to figure out who they are, get in contact with them, tell them about the sport of weightlifting, show them that it's a viable option for them. So I said I got the Brussels sprouts in that garlic butter. Just going to throw a little bit more salt and pepper on those. The steak sizzling away on the flat iron. And so we even got to have one of the Cal softball players who had finished her eligibility joined us for a little bit of the training when we were there. And I think that's the spot that USAW really needs to be going, is getting in contact with college athletes, or getting in contact with college strength and conditioning coaches, identifying athletes who are, short, explosive, short-limbed, weight room warrior type of people who really enjoy and love training, and who aren't going to be going to the NFL, going to the NBA, going to the NFL, going to the NBA, going to the Olympics, going pro in their sport of choice, and being able to at least show them that the sport of weightlifting is a viable option for them, showing them that it's a way that they can extend their competitive career. And with the great job that USAW does with stipends and all of that stuff, showing them that it's possible to make a real living doing weightlifting. You're not going to be rich, but you can pay your bills and compete and do what you love there. So we're going to try and do that on our own scale of Team Juggernaut, and really foster relationships with the strength and conditioning coaches and the athletes at Cal, and hopefully find some more talented athletes. Our lifters had a great week at camp. Alexandra LaChance particularly stood out, that she had probably 10 PRs throughout the week. Squat PRs, snatch PRs, clean and jerk PRs, hang snatch, snatch from the blocks. It was pretty excellent. So that was a lot of fun seeing them lift pretty well. And then as part of this kind of relationship with the strength and conditioning coaches, another cool thing we got to do was get on the force plate that they have in the weight room at Cal and do a little bit of testing there. And that was something, you know, I read articles about and see people talk about, but not something that I ever had the ability to get exposed to as an athlete, or just have not had access to as a coach. And you know, I won't get too much into the efficacy of it, but you know, you might have seen it on an Instagram Live, and we'll have some video of it that we include in our vlog from that week. But it was you know, it was a fun deal to get on the force plate. But what I really took away from that force plate testing and comparing our athletes, seeing them jump, seeing them do more general athletic work, was that is something that USAW should also be utilizing and tracking. Now, recently USAW introduced these youth combine and talent identification combines, which I think is a great step in the right direction by them, and something that's going to prove to be very beneficial for them. It's also something that I had suggested, if you read my 2015 article, an open letter to USA Weightlifting. That's something I talk about in there. And I think that they should take that maybe even a step further, utilizing some sports science stuff out there like force plates. And the force plate test that we did was, I'm trying to keep the fan on low, but my house is getting all smoky. So yeah, to utilize the force plate stuff that we did in seeing the way that the force plate test that we did was set up, is it measured the downward force of the loading part of the jump, the transition from eccentric to concentric motion in the jump, and then finally the rate of force development, the force that they were putting into the ground to accelerate themselves off of the floor. And you know, we saw different profiles between the athletes, people who could reverse change directions faster versus, you know, accelerate themselves upwards faster. I even hopped in and did it, and I could go down really fast, but not up so fast. And you know, it's just, I think, a very interesting thing to be able to build more and more data. You know, we had 7 or 8 lifters go through that, and I think it would be a great thing if USAW could utilize that kind of thing when they have their national level camp. They could, you know, whether they're youth camps, senior camps, to see what type of result is tending towards the best lifting result, and see, all right, what's the area most important for us to develop? Are we tracking that and looking at it objectively? Being able to maybe identify lifters who could improve their training result, that, you know, lifters who seem to have a lot of potential through general tests like vertical jumping. That is sizzling steak. I'm balancing a lot of things right now, cooking, talking, and you know, that they could use those kind of diagnostic tools to better assess the athlete's ability and potential for weightlifting, as well as to keep senior athletes accountable with maybe like a yearly check-in on a battery of combine general type of tests. And I think this would be a really effective thing, and that USAW should look more into, you know, implementing more general testing with the higher level lifters, getting to use the kind of sports science stuff that's available to them, things like force plates and all that good stuff, and then, you know, using that as a talent identification tool, and so they can see, you know, who's doing a good job with that stuff, who has maybe some untapped potential. We had Sakesha Johnson visit with us at camp, not one of our lifters, coached by Zach Schlender out of Missouri. And Sakesha, when we did the jump test, it was unbelievable how powerful she was in the jumping, and how high she was jumping. But her lifting, you know, and she's a very, very good lifter, but comparing her jumping to, say, Kiana, you would think that Sakesha could be maybe producing even a greater result. So maybe there's some stuff to look at there of potentially what's going on with her training, and ways to alter things so she can lift to even a greater, you know, her greater potential, because it was really amazing how powerful she was jumping. So this is probably the last time that I do a cooking and beers with Chad live, because I probably overcooked my steak by a minute or so, and just got sidetracked a bunch. So takeaways there: Cal Weight Room was awesome. Building a relationship with collegiate strength and conditioning coaches should be really high priority for USAW. Team Juggernaut's making it a priority, and I think other teams around the country with their local universities would be well served to do that too. For USAW to start implementing more general physical testing, with not just as talent identification with people who haven't been exposed to weightlifting, but also with people in their population currently, so we can see, you know, what's making these people successful. How high can elite weightlifters jump? How high do we need to be pushing those kind of numbers for people using force plates and all that stuff? Just because we have it available, and there are smart people out there who can effectively use those tools to improve the training of our athletes. So I'm gonna eat my dinner and keep drinking this beer, and I'll talk to you guys next week on Beers with Chad. Thank you.